We're ready to leave the keep. We're entering the Badlands, searching for the caves of chaos. As a dungeon master, wilderness adventures. Kind of the interesting complement to dungeon adventures. I mean, many adventures start in the dungeon, but often once we kind of move to a larger game world, you're at that central point, that keep, that castle, that outpost, that city, and now you venture off in search of adventure. You might have an idea of where you're going. Most of the time, you sort of have an idea of where you're going. So how do we approach this as a DM? I always have two maps. I have the map that is kind of off to the side that the players can see. This is kind of the known checkpoints of the realm, or I hand them a map that they can utilize. And we have a little marker for where they believe, usually in the moment it's like a spare D4, where they believe they are. And then behind the DM screen, I've got the real map that shows the locations of encounters that might have some hidden ruins or points they haven't discovered yet, and often a D4, a marker of what hex they're at. So as they move, most of the time, players are going to be able to slowly explore and move from hex to hex in the wilderness adventure. That represents their being cautious, they're checking out the area, there might be a random encounter. Depending on the adventure, sometimes every hex you'll roll for random encounter or every few hexes. Perhaps it's a space with ruins that they've discovered. But then there are times where they might get lost or be in places where they're not aware. An example might be at night, if they set up camp and they're ambushed or there's a random encounter, if they flee or run, they kind of have an idea of where they're going. But based on some rolls and some randomness, they might actually wind up in a different spot. Another example would be if they're marching through the night and they're marching forward. You're really pushing, right? You're trying to make it to the caves of chaos in time to rescue the prisoners. You might become lost. Sometimes through terrain. Now, it helps to have a druid. It helps to have a ranger. But sometimes through terrain, you might become a little lost and the party doesn't even know it. So I might have them make a wilderness check. It might be a survival check. It might be a certain skill check to see. So there is that possibility of two maps not exactly syncing up and them arriving at a point that's quite unexpected or not arriving at that original point at all. And there's some kind of interesting things to see how that develops. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about provisions. Some DMs will utilize this in the game. I, by default, don't. And I have to say, this is just my opinion. I want you to be immersed in your character. I want to pull you into that narrative. I want to keep the bookkeeping to a minimum. If I wanted the bookkeeping, then I'd go play Advanced Dungeons & Dragons where we'd get bogged down in weapon speeds and spellcasting times. I half joke. I mean, I love Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. I love that stuff. But I've been there where D&D mechanics can pull down the game. So I don't want to pile on more and more. Do I really need to keep track that you've moved this number of hexes and you've consumed this food? It's like I'm back to playing Ultima. I don't need to do that. I take the approach, the reasonable approach of you've provided provisions. You've got food. Maybe you're hunting along the way. You're going out into the wilderness, but we're playing that element. So I suspend that for a moment. Now, if it was a specific adventure, like climbing to the top of the World's End mountain, or perhaps if it was a seafaring adventure where they've been marooned and shipwrecked on the lost island and they have to find out what's going on, that might be a little bit different, where we've got kind of that survival feeling to it. I might utilize food in that, where you have to send out some party members to find some food, where you have to forage. But kind of your generic, let's explore the wilderness, find the caves of chaos, D&D adventure, I'm not going to track food. I'm not going to put the players through that because, again, that's that layer of bookkeeping where I'd rather have you focused, talking to the players, figuring things out, focusing on the adventure. On a side note, and we're going to jump into some essential D&D dungeon equipment. We looked at, previously I pushed up to the D&D archive here, top potions that you need as a player. These are the potions that you want to have ready to go. And we're going to look at some adventuring gear that's ready to go. But generally speaking, when we go into a dungeon, light sources in terms of torches and lanterns, I assume that you have some torches. I assume that the party is good on standard light. I don't need to track, well, you have a torch and it's good for this number of turns. And then if you don't refresh it or you don't have another, there's no light source and then you wander around. You can play that way. But again, it's a layer of focus and bookkeeping. I assume that you have some standard light sources. Now you want to use some sort of glowing gem. You want to cast a light spell. In that case, then we are going to track spell times or consumables because that's above and beyond what would be reasonable adventuring gear. Lanterns, torches, other types of light sources. But we're going to jump in to that specific adventuring gear that I think if you're entering into the dungeon, regardless of your character class, you should have ready to go. Now, turning it over to my fellow players and DMs, that wilderness adventure in search for the Caves of Chaos or returning to the Caves of Chaos, depending on the number of the module, do you play with food? Do you play with consumables? How do you handle or track wilderness adventures?